We're just showing you the basic information on that you need to know to get started with the Herbhy. So before you turn it on, there's an isolator switch up inside over the other side there that you can isolate the battery with, but it's already on at the moment. You can normally leave it on. Okay, come back out. Next thing is turn the key on. That's your emergency stop, right? So you could turn that to the right for that to be out. You can't see in the sunlight, but when you push it in, I think, yeah, it lights up when it's pushed in, and like that turns the light out, which means then you can start it. Then to start up the remote, you've got to turn it to the right so it pops out. So the idea of that is your emergency stop, you know, you push it in to stop it, but so to turn it on, we turn it to the right, and then the next thing, so it's still not lit up or anything, the next thing to light it up, and it doesn't tell you on here, is that little button there that says float. You push that, and then the red lights come on and the screen lights up with the instructions there. Okay, right, so then it tells you fuel and whatnot, voltage, it's flashing to say engine oil pressure low because obviously the engine's not running and alternator's not charging. Now to start it, this button over here, or switch, sorry, you push it up, but it won't start straight away. You might expect it to start cranking, but it doesn't. There's a little bit of a delay there because it's putting heat to the glow plugs. So you push it up and you hold it, okay, until it starts. And for the first start, it'll fire and then it'll shut down because it hasn't got oil pressure quick enough. It'll sense the oil pressure's low and it'll shut it down. But then you just start it again and it'll be right the second time, okay? So that's just the way it is. So here we go to start it. I've already had this running, so that's why it didn't stop that time. And also because it's already running, it started cranking straight away. But when it's cold, you'll push it up to start, and it won't start for maybe, you know, 4 or 5 seconds because it's applying heat. So you just got to push it up and hold it there until it starts cranking. As soon as it fires, stop, and then, like I said, first start, it'll shut down again, and then just do the same again. Okay. Once it's running, you bump your engine revs up there, or you can just push it up and hold it up, bring it back down like that. I've got to think what all these controls do. You'll work most of them out. I mean, they turn on the lights, that turns on the flashing beacon. This one here raises and lowers the mulching head. That does your steering left and right when you're stationary. But when you hold that in auxiliary and then do that, that operates the hydraulic door on the front of the mulcher. Going along here now, this one does your drive forward and drive backwards, and of course you can vary the speed with that. I mean, this would be all the same as the McConnells and other machines, I'd imagine. But then flat out, you can control the speed with that. So you can have that flat out and wind that right back, or wind that up to adjust your speed. So you don't have to, you know, hold your thumb in exactly the right spot to get the speed you want. You can just hold it up there and adjust your speed there. Your steering left and right as you're going, you know, and you can adjust the trim there to get it, you know, when you're working on a slope. These are your hydraulic windings of your tracks. So this is, you know, one side and this is for the track on the other. Now you can do that with it stationary depending what surface you're on. So if the tracks are going to bite in and grip too much, you don't really want to do it while you're stationary, but doing it while the tractor's moving forward. So move forward, you know, slowly, and while you're going forward, put one track out and then put the other track out. Or you could probably do them both at once, maybe, I don't know. This changes the direction that the controls work in. So that is forward, that's reverse. But if you've got it coming back to you, just depends how your brain works. Some people just adapt to that, but some people might want to flick it in the other direction so that, you know, it's still relevant to the way you're facing. But everyone's different, but that's your option there. That's the horn. That turns the mulcher on to spin in one direction. That's off, and that spins it in the other direction because they're double-sided blades on this forestry head. So it'll cut in both directions. And to be perfectly honest, I'm not really sure what that does. I probably did know and I can't remember, but you'll probably work it out. If you get stuck and you need help, give us a yell. This one here is important because that's to do with the load share of the deck. And this raises and lowers the deck, but if you just put the deck down with that onto the ground, what can happen is you're actually pushing down, because they're double acting cylinders, and you'll be pushing down on the skids, putting weight on those skids, and then you haven't, you're actually trying to lift the track in the air. I'll start it in a minute and show you. But this is one of the features of this machine compared to the McConnell, is that it has a hydraulic load share system, which the hydraulics take the weight off this, so it's only sitting lightly on the ground. The McConnells have a spring, and you can adjust the spring to suit. So this is a much better system. You can easily adjust it to suit the weight of the implement, so when you change implements, or you can adjust it to suit the conditions you're in, depending on how undulating the ground is. But it's a better system, I believe. So the adjustment for it is in here. Here's the down here. Oh, there's the adjustment. You need a 13mm spanner to undo the lock nut and adjust it there. And down here is the pressure gauge. Oh, it's dirty down there. And you can adjust that pressure gauge. So if you've got that too high, then it won't even come down onto the ground. Like, you'll have the deck up in the air and you'll engage the float and it won't drop down because the pressure's too high. So you want to screw it off just enough to let it drop down on the ground, and then and that's where you lock it up at. So then when you change implements, you just reset it again. Okay. So that's a good feature of this machine compared to other brands. Also, it's a lot more robust, heavy-duty construction, and I mean, just the weight of it confirms that story. It's a lot heavier. But also these tracks, now they look identical. In fact, they're made by the same brand, the same track. You can, if you go to replace the track, you can buy them from McConnell and put on this machine, or you can buy this machine and put on the McConnell. If you look up the brand name of them here, they're the same, but it's a different track mechanism. It's got floating rollers here. It's got this guide up here, and the main thing about it is it's hydraulic and automatic tensioning at the track. So it's not up to the operator to maintain the tension of the track, and therefore you don't have the problem with tracks coming off all the time, or regularly. So that's a really big feature with this machine, is the automatic hydraulic track tensioning. So yeah, it's also got the winch there as well, and it's also got the camera up the front. Now this, on the controller here, there's a little bracket and the camera attaches onto there, or the screen, sorry, attaches onto there, so you can see, if the operator's a distance away, you can still see, but we'll send all that stuff down later along with the extra tracks. Those extra tracks we're sending have got steel slats in there. They've also got the option to put on the steel spikes. So these are the standard track, and the other ones are the much more expensive option that you can have. But anyway, they're coming with the machine. So you've got two sets of tracks, one standard set and one optional upgrade set. But also with that optional upgrade set, you've also got the optional of the steel slats or the steel spikes. So you've got all options covered there. I'll just start it now. So just to go through again, that's the automatic stop. That's off now, and that's off there. If I turn that on first, and then we turn that to the right, and then we hit that button there, then it'll light up. And can you see that screen there? Yep. And then we hit the start button. So we'll adjusting our revs there. And you'll see I'll raise the deck to that. You see when I push it down, you can see the tractor lift in the air. And then I can go like that, and now the Mulcher's in the air. So you never really get it right. I mean, that's about as right as you can get it. But then the undulation of the ground will change, and that's why you can see, it's applying a little bit of down pressure there. If I hit the float, you'll see on the screen there, the little symbol lights up in that square there to tell you, just get my phone as well. When I hit this button, you'll see it should be that green light up. Right? Now I don't know whether you noticed, but the tractor in the background moved then. So just focus on that area of the tractor, and we'll do that again. So I'm just raising the deck, I'm pushing the deck down, and now I'm going to engage the float, and you'll see the tractor move slightly as I do. I'm engaging now, there it is, and that's got the load share activated. So it's taking the weight off the mulcher, off the skids, and that gives you more traction, you know, putting weight onto the tracks. Now also if I lift it in the air, I don't have to let it down first, right? I can just let it down by engaging the float. Right, so that's how you'd normally operate it. When you want to lift up the mulching head, you lift it up, right? You lift it up all the way or part of the way, and then you let it down by just engaging the float. I lifted it up all the way then, so I'll let it down a little bit, and like that. The reason it didn't come down then when I fully raised that deck was just because I've got that pressure set a little bit too high. So, but then again, there's advantages with having it higher because you're gaining more traction, which will give you better performance. So, if the operators know not to lift it all the way up, you'll probably find when it's warm though, it will come down. It's just when it's cold and the oil's a little bit thick, you know. So I wouldn't be worried about that, but if that was a problem, all you'd have to do is wind off that adjustment so that when you hit the float button, down it comes, you know. But yeah, that's up to you. You can play with it and find out what works best for you. But I think that should get you covered for now with the basics, and if you've got any more questions, give us a call.